they have a team of writers. Was that too far?
Everyone has a team of writers. Do we have a team of writers?
Yes.
We are.
That's me.
Yeah, us.
That's me.
Okay, well, welcome back to the Sweet Tea Podcast. As always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
Hello, everyone.
Ariana and Britt Allen, who works in our Right on Crime division, although she has been with TPPF much longer than her newer role here, and she has an amazing marketing background. So can you just tell us a little bit about what Right on Crime is and kind of how you function in that role?
Yeah, so Right on Crime is an initiative of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, like we know, but their focus is conservative criminal justice solutions in the United States. And then my role there is I work with our Director of Communications, Tanya Carr, and I'm the digital marketing manager. So social media, email marketing, website things, storytelling, everything that falls under the marketing umbrella is something that I get to have a hand in, and it's been a blast. I'm very fortunate to work on their team.
Amazing. Yeah. And so we have all three creatives. We have film, design, and marketing. Whoop, whoop. It's a total powerhouse.
The
right
backbone
here.
of capitalism.
I love it. Okay, well, let's go hop and grab a coffee. We will see you guys back in just a sec. Hey guys, I just stepped out and grabbed some coffee with Britt. So we're here hanging out. What is this drink that we have here?
So today we have an iced vanilla latte with oat milk, because I am a California girl by nature, so I have to introduce my alternative milks out here in Texas.
I love
that's
it.
What we've got.
Yeah, this is definitely both of our drink of choice, I think.
Yeah.
This is like every girl's drink of choice. I wonder when oat milk's gonna go out of style.
I don't think it's very good for you, but I also hope never.
It's so sad.
It tastes so much better. I call this the working girl's drink. Like, you know how they have like girl dinner and girl lunch they talk about on TikTok? This is the working girl's coffee.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, remember when soy was like all the rage back in the 90s?
Not really.
Not that we were the ones like, guys, we were not around in the 90s. Like, we were not.
I was going to say, my main concern in the 90s was my Polly Pockets, but I mean, sure.
But they all drink soy, and soy is like so not good for like women because it's like high in estrogen and like blood, and it's just not good. So I'm just waiting for them to come out with like, oh my gosh, oat milk is going to be tragic for your body.
I think they're starting to say that. I'm putting blinders on because I don't know what it is about a vanilla latte, but it's so much better.
So much better with oat milk. It just has that oat flavor to it. I love it. Okay, so you live in Texas now.
I do.
Okay. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born and raised in Northern California. I was born in the Bay Area and grew up really in the Sacramento suburbs, so the capital of California.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I always just thought it was Southern California.
No, I always wanted to make it to Southern California. I grew up in the suburbs, and I was always hoping that I would go live in LA and live the Los Angeles lifestyle, I guess, if you will, which is so contrast to what I live now. But went to school at a small private Christian university outside of LA, Azusa Pacific. Go Cougs. It's very small, which means I'm kind of out of my element here in Texas. Everybody went to a big school. But I loved it. It was a great experience. And I thought for sure I was going to work in film PR and entertainment. You could not tell me otherwise. Had some internships out in LA and was part of that world. Decided quickly I couldn't live with the traffic or really the lifestyle. So got out. I was living in Orange County in a little beach town called San Clemente, which is still to this day one of my happy places, and I loved it.
And that was post-college.
Right, that's post-college. When I was in college, I met my husband, who is just a born and bred, bleeds Texas kind of guy, and he always wanted to move back. I never imagined I was going to live in Texas. It was never part of my plan. But, after meeting him and talking to him about kind of what we wanted for our lives, I was like, you can afford a house in Texas? That's crazy. So needless to say, about 6 months after we got engaged, we moved to Dallas. We lived in downtown for about 2 years just to kind of get my bearings. And after my first year, really, really fell in love with Texas. And now I consider myself a true Texan. Would never ever move back. It was just not part of my plan. Even if California fixed all of their stuff, I wouldn't move back just because I really believe in this Texas hospitality and the lifestyle here. So
the ethos of Texas.
The ethos of Texas, exactly. But now I'm a true blue Texan.
I love it. Just for the audience, she is super stylish and somehow finds like the best Texas fashion to wear. It's amazing.
That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me.
It's very
Weirdly
inspiring.
Enough, thank you.
So your value system, you started in California, you moved to Texas.
Right.
but you went to, it sounds like a small private Christian university. So
right.
how did your values form and shift, and then how did you eventually end up in the role of marketing?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately my values stem from my faith. I was born and raised Christian, non-denominational, was always part of the church. It was always part of my family, and pretty much what my family based their moral code on was on our Christianity and our Christian values. So that never really wavered. That's always been a part of my life. It ebbs and flows like most Christians, I think, would say, but that's always been like a very firm part of myself and my moral code is my Christian values. So when I went out to LA to go to school at APU, I was really excited to, you know, still have those Christian values always around me, and I really credit my university to who I am today. I really got to dive into my faith, and it helped me understand what I believe in even more. But I will say, I was in LA, and there is a culture in LA, and there is a political system in LA, and politics, my family's always been conservative, but it was
Did your family shy away from the talk of politics, or was it just like a normal part of the conversation?
It was never really, I think, a big part of the conversation. It's not like they shied away from it or tried to shield me from anything. It just wasn't really something we talked about a lot. It wasn't something I was super interested in growing up, and then, you know, went off to college, as a lot of us do, and were exposed to different ideas, and so, you know, I just started believing very liberally. I mean, and to most college kids' credit, we try to think of like what is the most empathetic way of looking at something, and you know, when that's just always being talked about, really the only point of view, that's what I really came to believe. It honestly wasn't until I met my husband, who is super Texan, always been conservative. Policy and politics were always a part of his life and his interests, and I don't want to say he changed my mind, but he was the first person to have a really honest and open and respectful dialogue with me about politics and policy.
Yeah.
And what it came down to is he forced me to question myself and maybe defend some things I said I believed in. And ultimately, I couldn't defend anything I said or believed in with facts or figures.
That's amazing.
So he and I would have discussions, and he was never rude or condescending or anything. He just forced me to really look at what I said I was believing in, and I was like, I don't know that I believe that, and would have to go back to the drawing board. So I credit him a lot, but then also just a manner of growing up, getting off dad's payroll, and you know, getting a job for yourself, paying your own bills, paying taxes. It's like, well, wait a second. I don't know that I really like this very much. Who's FICO and what's he doing with my money? So really, I would credit all of that, but then ultimately going back to my Christian faith, when I started to really look at facts, figures, policies, outcomes, a lot more of conservative policy is just more in line with, for me, what I would say is the Christian faith and biblical principles. So that's ultimately what it came down to. Again, never had an interest in politics or policy, but here we are. And it's just crazy. It's crazy where God takes you and how he uses certain things to move you along in your life.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of girls in our audience can probably identify with that, of like going to a college, whether it's big, small, private, public, getting influenced by that big city, and then having their value system questioned because they were like raised a certain way to believe a certain thing, and then, you know, if you don't have a foundation for why you believe what you believe, it's really easy to get sucked into like the cool stuff, the cultural stuff.
Exactly.
It's like, it feels like everything that's cool is often Christian and anti-conservative. So it's like, it's very easy, I think, for someone who's learning to kind of ebb and flow of like, well, what do I believe in? I think that's a really healthy journey that you went on. But love that your husband brought you back, and you are a Texan to me. I love it.
Thank you. That wasn't the consensus when I first moved, because everybody's so sweet when you first move. Where are you from? I'm from California. Didn't like that very much.
Yeah. It's always like, oh, so are you here to stay?
Exactly. Are you here to stay? What are you bringing over with you? And I'd always just be like, I know. I promise. I'm cool. I promise. And then going back to your question about getting into marketing. When I initially was, you know, applying for different colleges, my plan was journalism. But at the time, journalism was kind of like moving into this digital age, and no one really knew for sure where it was going and if there was really even going to be a place for it. So I switched to a communications major, honestly, because I thought it was going to be easy. Which, compared to some majors, I would say maybe it is, but I got a lot out of it. Something clicked. I took my first PR and social media class. and I was hooked. Like, I knew that that's what I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. I knew that that was going to be my career path, and that I didn't know where it would take me, but I knew that that was going to be something that was really in line with my strengths. So I stuck with it. It's all I know, really, truly. I mean, it's every job I've held out of college has been around marketing, PR, social media, or comms, and I'm really, really thankful for it because it's given me some really incredible experiences. I've worked in different agency settings. I've worked here in the nonprofit sector. I've worked in the big corporations. I've worked freelance. So I've been able to have a wealth of experience because of that major and because of that path.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, it sounds like we have similar paths where it's like we did not expect to get into politics.
Right.
And then we used artistic skill sets to help build up the movement and the cause. And as I always like to tell you, let's make conservatives cool again. So.
Let's make conservative. And I feel like here, especially at 901 Congress, I feel like we're really doing a great job of that. And I think it's because of creatives like yourself and just a different perspective on what this all could be. So I love it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Britt, thanks for grabbing coffee with me. Let's head back to the studio. Thanks.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm glad we got to learn a little bit more about Britt and her background, and a lot of what she was saying is now going to lead us into the policy pulse. So, Britt, you're working with Right on Crime now, even though you've had a background in other parts of marketing. So now that you're in this role, what have you gotten to learn about criminal justice reform?
Gosh, so much more than I ever thought I would know, especially from like a conservative standpoint. I feel like the criminal justice conversation is, mostly dominated by one side of the aisle. And when it comes to criminal justice, when I first started working with Right on Crime, I thought of myself as very much like a tough on crime conservative, like lock them away. And what I've come to realize about myself through Right on Crime is that being tough on crime isn't necessarily being smart on crime. So Right on Crime, we work in a multitude of different areas, such as like civil asset forfeiture and juvenile justice and reentry and parole and whatnot. But I would say when it comes to Right on Crime and what we're fighting for is a truly more just criminal justice system, in the sense that we look at people as so much more than just their worst mistake. And now, granted, there are people that have to be locked up, people that we are afraid of. But when it comes to people we're mad at, who maybe made a mistake in their worst moment, that, still has like this ability to have like redemption and be redeemed and be able to put their life together and bring their family back together, that's really what Right on Crime is after, is an ability to not just throw people away and make them an amalgamation of their mistakes. They're more than that. So that has really, really like challenged what I thought I believed on criminal justice. And so I feel very fortunate to be part of that work. Brett Tolman and Julie Warren really spearhead that effort at TPPF, and I think they just do a fantastic job. And I'm just excited to be along for the ride and tell the stories. So.
Are there any cases or instances that have really highlighted that for you, with that difference between being tough on crime or things that would focus more on public safety rather than just locking up a criminal for the sake of doing it?
So when it comes to like one specific instance, I don't feel like I've been around or know enough to point out one specific case, but I would say the issue of reentry has been a big focus for me since I've started. And reentry is basically this idea of, people come out of prison and then what? A lot of times that means that person can't find work. And when you can't find work, that means you really don't have an opportunity to put your life back together and have a sense of pride and independence. So when it comes to reentry, are there programs, and can we institute programs that can facilitate bringing people who, maybe have had a drug charge or maybe stole a car? I don't know what that looks like or what someone's story is. Literally, that's another conversation. I love that game. But, those kind of people who it was a mistake, but it doesn't make up who they are.
And we'd want to make them less likely to reoffend as well, right?
Well, so that's what the research actually points to, is that like when you come out, being able to get into a job, your recidivism rate lowers. Like your chances that you're going to reoffend actually goes down. And they have also seen that, formerly incarcerated individuals who go out and hold a job with the proper resources and support can actually be a lot more loyal, a lot more dependable, and a lot more hardworking than the average person in the workforce. And so being able to be part of that and be able to tell stories that matter there, I think that can make a really big difference. And not just like the incarcerated individual's life, but the business as well as communities. Communities are strengthened by that. And the research continues to point to that being true.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question for that. So since you're the marketing side of all of that, you had a really good line where you said, you know, conservatives are all about usually being like tough on crime, but you said something interesting where you want to be smart on crime. So from a marketing background, like, are you having to put a lot of effort into changing that narrative and showcasing that's like, okay, conservatives actually are, we do care about the heart. We do care about the individual. We don't just say lock them up. Like, there is a rhythm and a rhyme to what we want to do. So sorry, question is, as a marketer, how are you going about changing that and communicating that to the audience?
Well, criminal justice is a really, really tough thing, I've come to realize, in terms of the nuance, because every case and every person is so different. So proper messaging for one case and instance might not be exactly right for somebody else's. So that's always in flux and that's always changing. But I think for myself, for Tanya, for the whole Right on Crime team, the best way to showcase that is by telling people's stories. And so when we're able to find instances of people who have really been through it, who have been incarcerated, who were given the opportunity to have a job, just being able to just shine a spotlight on that person and let them tell their story, I think makes all the difference in the world. And that goes into something deeper for marketing in the sense that, like, when you take in information in story capacity, that sticks with you so much more than just reading facts and figures. And we know that because in all of our different capacities, we tell stories in different ways. So when we're able to really find the real people and we're able to just showcase their stories through different mediums like social media or video or through graphics or op-eds or whatever that looks like, I think that is a really big thing for us in Right on Crime that we're trying to accomplish. But also there's this idea of when you're doing messaging, the marketing like rule of thumb is know your audience. But we have forgotten as marketers really to think about who that audience is and what they want out of us. Ultimately, what every consumer wants is somebody to help them solve their problem. And if you can't showcase that you're doing that, they're not looking for you to help them. So for us at Right on Crime, we're thinking about who are the people that need what we can provide. Resources, support, network, policy ideas, solutions. Who are those people really, really getting into their headspace of what problem can we solve for them and telling that story? I would say that's the two-prong approach that, you know, we really believe in at Right on Crime. I know we all really believe in at the foundation, and something that it takes time to shift your focus and your mindset to that way of messaging, but that's really what we believe in and what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so you're saying that like the person who just left prison does have an asset, like he or she is valuable to society, and you're marketing it to business owners and community leaders of like, guys, like this really is better for society. If they re-engage, there will be so many benefits for not just him or her, but the business owner, the neighborhood, the community center. That's what you're saying? Right.
So you have a formerly incarcerated individual who needs a job. Just say, for example, our audience is the business owner or the hiring manager. That's who we really want to talk to, because those are the people who were in charge of making the decision to hire that person, right? So we first off start off by identifying that person and then talking about their problem. Owning a business is really, really hard. It takes a lot out of you. You've got a lot of decisions that you have to make. And part of those decisions is, you know, creating a team around you of hardworking, loyal, and dependable people. But luckily for you, Right on Crime, we have a solution that can help you do that in your business, to not only help your business, but bring your community back to life. That is just so much more compelling than being like, you know, X amount of percentage of individuals who are formerly incarcerated can do. No one cares. How are you helping somebody solve a problem and tell a compelling story where the facts are there, but there's also a human element where you realize that's a person and an individual with inherent value, and your business is seen and valued, and this can transform that business and that community. That feels a lot more compelling. At least for me as a consumer, that feels more compelling.
So you're identifying the different audiences of both like the of the business owners? And then is there any way you're targeting other community members specifically?
I mean, there are so many people that you can identify and go through this whole like storytelling pathway about. For us, reentry, at least the way we're wanting to talk about it, is in this way of like, business owner. Yeah. We see you.
Because they're going to be the ones to make that hiring decision, I guess, at the end of the day.
Right. And maybe juvenile justice, maybe we're talking to parents. Maybe we're not talking about to the juvenile who's got, you know, a ton of things going on in their life. Maybe we're talking to the parent. And so being able to take each individual issue and really think about the human being behind it and what it is that they want out of something. That's what we're really trying to get down to the root of.
Wow. I mean, I don't know about you, but like that, like I was drawn in by that. I was like, man, keep talking. This is so great.
Thank you.
You are already such a good storyteller.
That's what marketing is.
I love it. Okay, so let's move on to pop culture with principles.
Something I know a little bit more about.
I think that's what we bonded over originally when you came to the foundation too. It's just like the pop culture stuff. I think it's very rare that we were talking about the actual policy
I love
stuff
it.
in our free time.
So the Barbie movie just came out, and I have because I feel like this conversation can go in a million different directions. I came up with very specific questions that I want to ask you guys.
Okay.
And just trust me on the flow. Trust me on the flow, because I know we're going to want to jump to like our final conclusion, but I want to do justice to really giving a critique of this film.
Okay.
So to start out, were you raised with Barbies? Like, did you play with Barbies? What was your interaction with them?
Absolutely.
You're a Barbie girl?
Oh my gosh. I was a Barbie girl. But I didn't discriminate. I was a huge Bratz girl too. And My Scene and Polly Pocket. But Barbie was like, that was my personal favorite type of doll. We had a ton between me and my sister. We had the dream house. We had the cars. I had a weird Barbie that definitely got cut up and her hair got chopped. But yeah, huge Barbie girl.
I feel like I was just a few years too young to be on the big like Barbie train of things, because by that point the Polly Pockets were becoming a huge thing, because that was like kind of at that heyday. So for me, I was more into like the little Polly Pockets, or I think I was like baby dolls, and then I had a few Barbies, but I just didn't enjoy playing with them as much because I think I had more clothes for my Polly Pockets.
Did you ever have a Polly Pocket jacket that you would chew on back in the day?
Wait, did they have a what?
Because it was made of like that type of material, and as like a kid, you would chew. Never mind. I outed myself.
Did it feel like
as a
gummy
weirdo.
snack?
Yes. Obviously, you don't swallow it, but it was just like a comfort thing to chew on a jacket.
I feel like that's why they have that warning on it for
You were
ages
the
like 4+
reason.
or 7+.
Sorry.
Not edible. Okay, I also was raised with Barbies. I feel like I don't ever remember going out and buying my own Barbies, but I do know that I just got a lot of hand-me-down Barbies, so I definitely had a collection of weird Barbies that I remember trying to fix. I remember getting a weird Barbie from like, you know, an older girl who's like, you know, she doesn't use Barbies anymore. Here, Taylor can have them.
Yeah.
And then I remember like trying to fix their like horrible haircuts and trying to cut it perfectly straight. Like I
Redemption.
redeemed my little weird Barbies and would like clean them off. Kind of like that scene from Toy Story where
where he like fixes them up
in
and
Toy
paints
Story
the boot
2?
and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so
Repaints his
satisfying
boot.
to watch.
It really is. Those are my favorite scenes in movies. Okay. So we all have interacted with Barbies on some level. First question. What did we think about the set and costume design?
Perfect. 100% perfect.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
I found it so funny that there was a shortage of pink paint because of the movie, like just across the world.
Was there really?
Yeah. There was a worldwide
talking
shortage
about
of
this.
pink paint
I'm
because of the movie.
Well, it's also because of the marketing teams all over the world that
Yes.
were
Using it.
capitalizing. That's awesome.
Speaking of marketing, like,
Talk about a budget.
Yeah.
yeah, but also it's like, oh my gosh, like the amount of other companies that have like been like, and we're doing a Barbie collab, and like all they have to do is say it's Barbie and throw a little bit of pink on there, and I can just imagine their sales are just skyrocketing
Absolutely.
right
They're riding the wave.
I think they did nostalgia well because it wasn't just a replay of what you knew. Because there were Barbie movies back in the day.
Yeah,
it was
that's true.
I'm going to target this to the age of people who really grew up with these for the age they are now.
Right.
So that was also smart for making it in general.
No, the set design, I mean, everything you could possibly imagine of Barbie Land. I mean, it was perfect. The pink, like the attention to detail.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Or
and
how
it was
you would
so
play with your
imaginative.
Barbies. Like I'm trying to remember if it was Greta Gerwig herself or someone else pointing out how like when Barbie just floats off of her dream house.
Because no little girl takes her
Yes.
Barbie down the stair. that attention to detail was so crazy.
Yeah.
Or like she poured herself orange juice and nothing came
No,
out. She
yeah,
took
or
a
she brushed
shower.
her hair.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
It was so imaginative and creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like easily translates or leads us into my next question. What, in your opinion, were the best scenes? I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I loved when she stepped out of her shoe and it was still a high heel. Like that to me,
Amazing.
I was just like, nailed it. That is Barbie. Like that is
Yep.
so unique to Barbie that she is constantly on her toes like that.
Yeah.
I love that. And then Ken's like
The
song monologue.
The beach
blonde
off was
the
great.
beach
Yeah.
off, the blonde fragility. I'm just like, yeah, I get that. I get that.
I would say for me, towards the end, after when all of the Barbies are kind of under the Ken spell of patriarchy.
Oh my gosh.
And they all start kind of waking up, and the whole scene is so satirical, where it's just pointing out like these very niche references of like a very specific type of guy that we've all dated at least one point in our lives, where they were talking about like having to deep clean the whole house after they took over the dream houses, or only satin leather couches, or that they were explaining finances to them, and like
Or
that
the guitar player, like
getting
Oh
played
my gosh,
at.
being serenaded. There was a guy who was so I have mixed feelings about the movie and that scene in particular, but there were the pieces of truth in it that were just kind of spot on.
Right.
And there was a guy saying like, how is that even realistic? I'm like, I've been serenaded at, and it's the most awkward thing in the entire world.
And you
I
don't
feel like
want
a lot
to
of
say
people
anything
have.
because it's
Yeah.
like they're trying so
Yeah,
hard, but
right.
internally you're just like, get me out. So
yeah, you're cringing.
it was
hard
It was
on the
awkward. It's
inside.
like, oh, I'm just here. What am I supposed to do? And
no, you're supposed to sit there and enjoy, but it was just funny because like everybody out, like our age in the theater was watching those pieces,
or
and they
the
were
Godfather
laughing.
one. Have y'all had that happen? The like
Yes.
explaining Godfather to you?
Yeah.
Well, I was the one who liked the Godfather, so it's a bit different.
Oh, okay,
but-
you're the exception. I've actually never seen Godfather, but I have been talked at. I feel like
Okay,
now
I was
instead of
gonna
the
ask about that.
Godfather, it's the Wolf of Wall Street. They try to do
Yes,
that.
okay,
with-
that's true.
Right. Yes.
I love that movie, by the way. Boys Don't Come After Me.
there was another little moment that I really liked when she was sitting at the park bench and just saw this like woman who just aged gracefully. She's just there living her life. That scene I really liked, and I still have like complex feelings where I'm trying to see if there's a more there with that whole scene where she's just
Yeah.
watching people have
Yeah.
conversations. I
Did
don't
you know
just makes
that
me
old
mad.
woman at the bus stop was the original Barbara Handler who Barbie
Yes.
was based? I thought that was.
I didn't find
know
out until
about
way
that.
after.
Me
That was
too.
amazing.
I thought that was really cool. I thought that was nice.
And that's where I'm wondering, like, if some of that messaging comes in. I felt like the film was conflicted on whether or not they liked Barbie at the end.
Right.
But that was one of the moments where I felt like they did see the good of Barbie being
Yeah.
something that you aspire to. So if you as a little girl see yourself as this beautiful woman, then that's what you think of yourself. So I
That's cool.
thought that was
That's
that
a nice
worked. That did
sentiment.
work for me.
Yeah. Okay. Because that is like 3 questions down. I do want to get to like the tone and messaging, but let's just go through really quickly. What did you think of Barbie? What did you think of Ken? What did you think of them?
Like as a couple or like individual
What do you think
characters?
of Barbie herself?
I mean,
and Ken?
Margot Robbie is Barbie. Like she's one
Yes.
of the most beautiful women in the world. I don't think they could have had a more perfect Barbie. I thought
100%.
she encapsulated still being smart and fun while also being beautiful and the dream girl. Like
Yeah.
she was stereotypical Barbie, and I thought she was perfect. But they didn't make her dumb or anything like that. Like she was still in touch with her feelings and fun and smart.
And she wasn't an expert on everything. She just knew
But she
enough.
was self-aware,
Yes.
too.
And I really liked how they did her.
Yeah, I loved Ken. I thought Ken was the best part of the movie, if I'm being
Yes,
honest.
honestly,
And,
yes.
Like, I just thought.
I was actually scared of his casting originally.
I was
because
too.
You know how he's like getting a little bit older. I'm like, oh, does that work for Ken? He worked
Right.
as Ken.
He was
100%.
perfect. I know. I take it back. I thought he was a great Ken. I thought the idea of making Ken kind of like an accessory, and he's dealing with his internal, struggle,
like his
of-
identity crisis.
Truly,
Yeah.
an
And
identity
Ken.
crisis. And Ken,
Ken.
which I mean, and maybe that's fair to male perspective right now. But I thought he made a great Ken. I loved how funny and silly they made Ken. It added a
He had the
level
best
to it.
lines, in my opinion. Like
Yes.
Ken, like all of his lines were so solid.
Ken's job is beach. Like that's hilarious.
I am Beach. And then all the different Kens and all the different Barbies. So it's like everyone was represented. I'll just say really fast, loved Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling. I can't think of anyone better to play those parts. I do love that Ken was a bleach blonde because I know that Ken can also be a brunette. Like that was like classic Ken.
Yeah.
But I love that they kept Barbie true to who she was and they didn't make fun of her. Like I was really afraid that they were going to rip her apart and be like, see, like Barbie is like the worst and like she's
I
such
feel like they did a little. So I disagree a teeny bit, but we can get into that in the second tone of messaging.
Yeah. And then with Ken, I just feel like he got so gypped in this role. Like
Really?
I really do. I was like,
I mean, they definitely didn't make him look great for sure, but I also thought it was funny.
I just was like, we were also like, I honestly think Ken is like everyone's favorites. Like, I mean, obviously Margot Robbie is perfect, but like as Barbie, but Ken was just hilarious.
He was funny.
And had good, like he was trying to find himself. And when he was wrong, he owned it. And then he was like, he just wanted to be with Barbie. Like, yes. And then Barbie was like, no. I was like,
But she wasn't good to him to begin with, so it was a weird complex sort of thing.
yeah, it was kind of like where Ken and Barbie, but like you're not boyfriend girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why not?
Yeah.
Why can't
Well,
you show?
I'm okay with the fact that they didn't end up together because the way that they were playing the characters, I didn't think that was a good match.
Sure.
But I think if it had ended more with a like, oh, your Barbie's out there, but it's not me, that would have been something I was fine with.
Yeah, he needs
But-
his little soulmate.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Or maybe Ken just needs to find himself. Maybe Ken needs
Well,
to find
first,
Ken
I think
before
you
he
need
gets
to.
with Barbie.
Yeah. But her being
I can't believe how deep
forever-
we're looking into Barbie right now. I've never talked about
Well,
Barbie
it's a Greta
nearly as
Gerwig
much.
film though, so I feel like there does need to be that.
Yes,
that
she
deeper-
has a lot of depth to her.
Yeah.
Which I knew there was going to be more depth as soon as I found out she was doing it, which I appreciated. But yeah, I totally understand.
Do you have a favorite line from the movie, like a joke that you just really loved?
Oh. I mean, does Ken's song count? Like the whole thing?
I know. It's so good.
I think, honestly, I think when he said my job is beach,
That
I
was
think
great.
that's hilarious. Because now TikTok has taken that and exploded, and now everybody's showing what their Ken's job is. My Ken's job is office.
and your Ken is your husband?
My Ken's job is office and lawn. He came with an Excel spreadsheet and a lawnmower.
So cute.
So I mean, I thought anything Ken said is probably, or honestly, when he said like patriarchy, when he was like, what is it? Like, I must go tell the others. Like, I thought that was hilarious.
I'm trying to think of a favorite line. Okay, I know. So did y'all watch the deep dive Ben Shapiro did on the Barbie movie?
No.
It was 40 minutes. And then he had a whole other little debate with Brett Cooper about it for another like 15. I have watched both of them, but I'm a child and I thought that them having the beach off was funny. So that worked for me.
That's funny.
I thought
funny.
it was funny. And the way they did it with the giant fight at the end, that all was great. So
Yeah.
for me, the jokes all landed.
I love it.
I think the weird Barbie where she's like holding up the shoes. The
Birkenstock.
Yeah, the Birkenstock is just like, wow, that is so accurate. And she's
Yeah.
like, pick which one you want. No, you have to pick this one. Like, I love that line. And then when Ken was like, hey, Barbie, like, want to go hang out later? Why? You know, boyfriend, girlfriend stuff. What is that?
Yeah.
Honestly, I have
don't
no idea. Honestly, I don't know. I was like, oh my gosh, Ken, you're so cute.
It was just the Ken lines they killed.
Yeah, Ken killed.
Ken killed. Okay. Now, last question. Thoughts on the overall tone and messaging, and then, the plot itself, which I'll just start out by saying I don't think the movie had a plot. It was very like it's
I was
like
gonna
they
say,
were
what
trying
plot are we gonna
so
talk about?
hard to get there. And I heard, like, I could be totally wrong, so totally fact check me, but I think Warner Brothers had it, and then like they like sold it to
Oh, I
whoever,
didn't know if they did
and
do
then
that.
like then Greta got involved later, and I just feel like they were trying so hard to like bring it in line, but it just kind of got lost.
So earlier today I was like just mentioning a little bit of the show to Britt, and one of the things that we said was oh my gosh, how did I just lose my train of thought right now in the middle of this? Okay, skip me. Next.
You know what?
Britt,
that
go.
should be the blooper. That should be the blooper for this week, because I get the blooper every week because I mess up, and now Ari has her own blooper.
We love bloopers. What's a podcast without a blooper reel? Okay, so for me, overall, I liked the movie. I did not hate it. I certainly did not love it. The plot for me felt super disjointed. It felt like the storyline was all over the place, but then like by itself, but then there's always a grasp for feminism. And it's like, we knew it was going to be a feminist movie. Like, I think we all went in understanding that. And to their credit, I think it could have been a lot more feminist and crazy than it was. Still a little bit too much for my taste, but overall, the plot was all over the place. I think for me, what I really enjoyed was I just enjoyed like the aesthetic and the vibe and the fun of Barbie Land. Seeing Margot Robbie as Barbie, thought that was fun. You know, I still think they talked about issues that women face in a way that, you know, makes sense. Like, I think a lot of conservative men hate the movie, and maybe rightfully so. But I think a lot of conservative women walk away liking it a little bit because it's like, it's, you know, women do face specific issues that men will never have to understand. But that's okay. Yeah. Sometimes it's really, really hard to be a woman. It just is. That doesn't mean it's not hard to be a man. Doesn't mean that men don't have their own issues.
It's just hard in a different way.
It's just different. But both matter and both are okay to talk about. I don't believe in this big, massive, oppressive patriarchy that keeps me from doing things at all. But to say there's no patriarchy ever, I don't know that that's necessarily true either. Women do experience some issues.
I'm now remembering my point. So we were talking about the differences between what we thought when we first left the theater and then the day after. So do you want to go over what you thought between those two?
Such a good point. How at first you were just like, what? And then the next day it settled in.
Literally, I walked out and I was just like, I don't know how to I don't know yet what I think about, which usually it's pretty cut and dry for me. I know if I like something or if I don't, but it was just a lot more layered than I thought, which again, I can't believe I'm talking about Barbie. Like, it's so layered, but it was, in the sense that like movie quality wise, it was super disjointed. It was all over the place. I had a hard time keeping up because I don't think they really knew where the story was going. And it was always a reach for feminism. Yeah. But on the other end, I thought the satire about Ken and patriarchy was funny. I don't think they took it too far. I think they made fun of a very niche type of guy, which is a type of guy that a lot of millennial women have dated at least once or twice. So we could all get in on the joke, and it's funny and it's self-aware. Like, I was even telling Taylor, they made fun of like, they brought in a Matchbox 20 song, Push, that apparently this type of guy loves. So when I came home from the movie, I was like singing it to myself around the house, and my husband was like, did they make fun of Matchbox 20 and use Push? And I was like, oh, so you're who they made fun of. So all that to say, I walked away really liking it. I didn't think it was too feminist, and you know, I wish they'd pulled it back a little bit more. I enjoyed the satire. I just wish that there was like a more cohesive storyline.
What I realized with my first viewing, and it was like you were, I was confused, and it wasn't until the next day where I was like, whenever I was trying to grapple with it, and I couldn't understand how I feel, it's because I was grappling with the message because there was no plot to exactly. Right. And the other thing that you mentioned was the Kens and the satire about guys in that sort of way. I actually, it didn't bother me that they acted that extreme whenever he first was introduced to the real world, because he was under like oppressive extremist feminism, basically, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think leads to that kind of behavior, that what I call like the Andrew Tate kind of behavior.
Yeah. So like a full pendulum swing to the other extreme.
And so for me, I'm like, well, that actually is super insightful, that this sort of, and this is where I felt like the movie was almost fighting with itself, where it had like these moments of truth, because if you're just a good writer, you will at least you'll look at the real world and like pull from that, right? So I think that pendulum swing really worked for me, and also like highlights that, why do we have like men moving in that way whenever it wasn't here even a few years ago? And so it's just like this huge toxicity. And then of course the messaging at the end, I couldn't stand it. And I'm like, the whole time I knew it would happen, but I just had hope. Yeah. The messaging could have been, we need each other. And whenever we're working separately, is there someone who's not getting what's just and what's due to them. Yeah. But if we both work together, we need each other. And that's what we should seek and try to look for.
It operated in extremes, right? It was extreme Barbie land, then it was extreme Kendom land, and then at the end,
Mojo Dojo Casa House.
I love the Mojo Dojo Casa House.
I kind of hope they start selling those.
I would buy one for my future kids.
Guys, I just want to throw in a personal note. My bachelorette party is this weekend, and it is Barbie themed. And my fiance is totally going to join at some point because we are best friends. And I really, really want to get him a shirt, since we're all going to be dressed in like Barbie themed, that he says, "I am Knuff." And I feel like I gotta buy it
As
for
you
him.
should.
I am
As
Knuff,
you
and just
should.
make him wear it around all night. Like, you are Knuff. It's okay.
I
did
love
like
it
that
when
in
he can
Knuff.
get in on the joke. I think that's
Yeah.
super fun. I hope you do. I think you should. Or
Yeah.
like the romper. Or no, get him like the big fur coat and like
That's the move
you know,
right there.
like the fanny
That's
pack
the
that says
move.
Ken. Like
Yes.
make it super patriarchy.
Yes, I love that.
I love it.
That is definitely the costume that we're gonna have to work on this year. Yeah, I think I agree with y'all's general tones of like, it was a little directionless. Really sad that the end like went back to an extreme. Like you would have thought it was a learning
Here's the other
experience.
weird thing, though. So the ending, they just had multiple endings, and I don't think Greta Gerwig knew what she actually wanted to do. But that's because at the end of it, what she created there was not a good world, and it's not like a fair thing to retaliate with. And also, I don't think the real world is as broken as they think and kept making it out to be
Right.
during the whole movie. So like,
That's
would anything
feminism.
would anything like what she went through when she was on the roller skates and like get like it's
Would a
just
guy
not-
actually come up and smack you these days? Like, I
in
don't.
the middle of the day, like if there's a shady club and she's just there and doesn't like, I feel like there's could have been something,
Yeah,
but
that
that's
was a
not
bit
what the
much.
case was.
Well,
in California,
to be fair, that happens. Like I'm not.
in
It doesn't.
California,
in the middle,
of the day.
a random guy will just walk up and slap you on the butt.
I'm not saying it's happening to me, but I'm just saying like just because it hasn't happened to us doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
But
ever.
what she's saying though, and what they're trying to make it seem
No,
is
they
that
make
that's
it
something
an
you're in
extreme.
danger of.
They make it an extreme for sure. But I will say I feel a lot more. I don't say what's the word I'm looking for. Like I don't know, targeted in that way when I am walking through somewhere like California. Also, she was in Venice Beach. I don't know if y'all have been to Venice Beach. That is the wild frickin' West. That is a scary, scary place to be. And actually, if it was going to happen, it probably would be in a Venice Beach, if I'm being totally honest.
Interesting.
Because here in Texas, like, that's the thing that really gets me about California versus Texas. Texas here, people think of it as like the men are in this patriarchy and they're more powerful or whatever. The men here are so gentlemanly
Yes.
and they have such regard for women that more oftentimes than not, I would argue that does not happen in a place like Texas.
in a place like California.
Or a guy.
No, in Texas, that kind of stuff doesn't happen.
or if it
as
did
does in
happen, I feel like there would
California.
be like another guy who saw that and would go like,
Yeah.
fix
Exactly.
the situation.
There's a
Yeah.
sense of honor and protection and looking at women in a certain way. I'm not saying there's nobody here that's in on,
Yeah.
Sure.
acting inappropriately, but I will say that like, for example, I've got like left-leaning friends that know where I work and they think that the men are probably the worst here. What I will say is that the men that work at TPPF are some of the kindest, most respectful men I've ever met. I've never felt more seen or more valued or more believed in than I do in a place like here.
Totally agree.
And it's because of this masculine culture that's done appropriately.
Yeah.
In California, masculinity is toxic over there because there is no proper masculinity, and I would argue those are the people that are catcalling or laying hands on a girl. So that's just
And they did show the other side of it too. So like what I really hated originally was the girl's dad, like just being like this whatever guy, kind of a loser, just trying to learn his Spanish,
where's
Duolingo,
dad?
and
Yeah,
like
I didn't love
not really
that.
important. But the weird thing was, so I was in California this weekend, and I was at this one bar in and this was like in the middle of San Diego, and the guys there were just really like passive scared sort of thing. And so it was really weird kind of seeing that.
there's no in
played out in
between
real
there
life.
where it's
I
like
know,
if
it's a
they're
scary
not,
time to be a guy, I feel like,
But then
especially
in
in
one of
It
the
is
other
weird.
cities we went to, which is farther inland, there was that's where we were like kind of followed a little bit and got creepy vibes. So that is interesting that maybe it's just a California thing that's around there, or
It's
like
just,
a
like,
bad
urban.
culture
I mean,
thing.
and to be like, I love California. Well, things about California. Let's be clear. Like,
Yeah.
I'm from there. There are things I love about it, and I'm not saying every guy there is one way or another. Like, that's not what but I will say there is like a culture there where either men are terrified of women,
Right.
or because there is such a lack of like appropriate masculinity, the pendulum does swing in a disrespectful direction.
Yeah, I do want to say before we move on, though, that it's just a really funny story. So we had a premiere for Forging Texas, which Ari was a part of that project. It's super cool. Go check it out on YouTube. But shameless plug. But my soon-to-be mother-in-law flew in from California because he's from California also, marrying a Texan, so good for him.
Attaboy.
So she came in town for that, and it's like this obviously show about forging Texas. How was Texas created? All the Texas things in Texas that make Texas Texas. Whatever. Can I say Texas more times in a sentence?
Probably not, but you
But
should
you
try.
should always aspire to.
Yes, always.
But I remember her coming in and speaking of like our male coworkers here, like they were wearing their cowboy hats, they took off their hat, they did a little bow, like shook her hand, and she was just like in awe. She was like,
It's amazing.
"This is wonderful! Like I did not know that this existed. Like, is this real?" And I'm like, "No, our guys are super great. Like raise them right."
The best. That's why I married one. Because again, I was born and raised in California. I was in the California dating pool. I was like, man, this is bleak. I met my husband. I said, where are you from? He said, Texas. And I said, all right.
Texas.
All right. And then he took his cowboy hat off. Just kidding.
Okay, moving on to the Conservative Council. We probably have enough time for one question. So I'm going to read the one on marketing.
Okay.
It says, what does the future of marketing look like, and how can conservatives specifically capitalize on this?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Marketing is in such an interesting place right now. What I think two things are going to prescribe to what marketing is. It's not just what it is going to look like, it's what it's looking like now if you're on the pulse and you're really, really good at what you do. I would say storytelling is a non-negotiable when it comes to marketing. And when I say storytelling, I do mean like, yes, finding stories that, you can actually tell with real people attached to it. But also this idea of going back to your messaging and understanding, like really getting in the mind space of who it is you're talking to, which I know we just got into, but like if any of your viewers are in marketing or part of a comms team, like I can't stress enough the importance of storytelling. When it comes to the conservative movement, we have the immense ability to whip out research and facts and figures that all points to why we're right about a lot of different issues, because we are. The facts don't lie.
Right.
But ultimately, you can't invite somebody to the party with a white paper. That's boring. You have to pique somebody's interest. You have to talk to the human emotion and element in somebody. You have to pull at a heartstring. No one cares about a fact unless you can really, really show them how it affects them.
Yeah.
How does that affect my kids?
Yeah.
How does that affect my family? How does that affect so-and-so? Like, paint a picture for somebody. So I would say storytelling is a big one. The next one is kind of a hot topic, and especially on the conservative movement, but where AI stands right now, I'm a huge proponent of. That doesn't mean I always will be. I think there's a really good chance that it's headed in a not great direction, especially because I don't think our Congress can possibly understand it well enough to regulate it.
Right.
Much like Facebook, I think we all remember when Mark Zuckerberg sat in a testimony and people were the questions asked were just so elementary. It's just like, I can't believe we're even wasting our time right now. But all that to say, going back to AI, certain tools like ChatGPT and using them not to do your work for you, but to supplement your work, to help you save time, to help jog your creativity a little bit. That I think is paramount. It is shaving hours off people's day.
Yeah.
Like really, truly. And when it comes to creative and writing and things like that, I'm not saying always use exactly what it spits out, but really learn to work with it. Learn how to give it educated prompts so that you can get a positive output from it. And I think it really does take time off of your day. It streamlines a lot of what marketers are doing. And I was actually just in New York not too long ago for a marketing conference where we talked a lot about AI. And someone said, AI is not going to take the jobs of marketers, but marketers using AI are going to take the jobs of marketers who are not. So I would say if you're scared of AI, I mean, you have a little bit of a reason to be. I'm not saying, dive all in on AI and become a proponent, but, there's something to be said about certain things like Jasper AI or ChatGPT, or just a few things that kind of help in your content creation and streamlining your workflow.
It's a new tool. Either you're going to use it or
It's a tool.
They're
That's
gonna
how
be
you should
lost
look at it.
behind.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It shouldn't be a crutch. It shouldn't be something you totally rely on, but it should be something that you utilize to just make you even that much better at your job. Because not everybody can just jump in and use ChatGPT. Like there's a way of learning it and using it that makes a lot of sense. So I would say if you're not doing it, do it, because a marketer who is using it will take your job.
Love it.
And that might be really, really harsh, but I really believe that that's where it's at right now. And don't be scared of it. A lot of businesses, I feel like, are so scared of it that they're pretending it doesn't exist. And that's fine, but that's how businesses fall to the wayside as well. So that's where I would say it's not just going, that's where it is now. And I think the really, really strong marketers already know that and are using it. So get on board and read up and just dive in and try it. So
I love
does that help?
Yeah. So that, I feel like you answered perfectly. So as we wrap up, where can they follow Right on Crime? If someone's interested in it, seeing your work, how can they check all that out?
Thank you. Well, so obviously follow us on social media, Right on Crime. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter's a big one for us, as well as LinkedIn. I'm probably going to start getting into the TikTok game pretty soon here because I'm also a huge proponent of that. You can sign up for our newsletter, the ROC Report. You can go check us out on our website. Brett Tolman, who is our executive director, is on Fox News all the time, amongst other different podcasts and shows. So if you just got the news on, odds are you'll probably see him. But that's a great way to keep up, and obviously follow us and keep in touch with Conservative Criminal Justice Solutions, because we're trying.
I love it. Well, Britt, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure. I feel like every conversation, could have gone on for hours, because this is truly just such great girls talk.
Love it.
Yeah. So thank you guys for catching up with the Sweet Tea series. We will see you next week.